They buried her at dawn, believing the mayor had died of a heart attack. But one soldier, and his loyal canine, felt something wasn't right. The dog wouldn't stop barking. The crowd fell silent, and when the coffin was opened, everything changed. What they found inside revealed a truth darker than corruption, a secret that could destroy the entire town of Silver Falls. Now, hunted by those in power, one man and one dog must risk everything to protect the woman who once led them, and to expose the evil hiding behind every oath and every smile. This is not just a story of survival. It's a battle between light and shadow, and a miracle only God could have written. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from, and if this story touches your heart, please subscribe for more soulful stories. The morning lay heavy over Silver Falls, Montana, draped in low clouds and the slow fall of gray snow that muted every sound except the church bell. Inside the old cedar-framed chapel, hundreds of black coats filled the pews, their breath forming faint halos in the cold air. The scent of pine wood polish mingled with lilies and candle smoke. At the center of the aisle stood a polished mahogany coffin crowned with white roses and a folded American flag, the resting place, or so they believed, of Mayor Eleanor Whitfield. Eleanor had been the kind of woman people either admired or feared, tall, with a posture that spoke of both grace and command. Her auburn hair, streaked with silver, framed a pale face, once known for its quiet kindness and unbending resolve. A former Army nurse turned reformist mayor, she had spent 15 years dragging Silver Falls out of bankruptcy and corruption. Even in death, her portrait beside the altar seemed to radiate strength, as though she were still watching over her people. Near the rear pew sat Captain Ryan Brooks, the man who had once guarded her convoy during a mission in Afghanistan. At 38, Ryan carried the stillness of a soldier who had seen too much. Rugged jaw, faint stubble, and a scar tracing down from his left temple to the edge of his beard. His dark hair, trimmed military short, was flecked with gray from years of service. The faint tremor in his left hand wasn't from nerves, but from the cold memory of battle. He had left the Special Forces 3 years earlier after a roadside explosion ended his career and most of his trust in the world. Beside him lay Ranger, a 6-year-old German shepherd with sable black fur and a pale silver muzzle. The dog's left ear had a ragged edge, a reminder of the same blast that had nearly killed Ryan. Ranger's amber eyes were sharp, almost human in their perception. The bond between man and dog was wordless but deep, built through the kind of loyalty forged only in combat and pain. As the minister's voice droned through a passage from Psalms, Ranger began to stir. At first, a low growl rumbled in his throat, soft enough that Ryan thought it was a dream. But then the growl grew louder, chest vibrating with tension. Ryan's hand fell instinctively to the leash. "Easy," he whispered. Ranger didn't ease. His ears shot forward, muscles rippled under his fur. Then, with a sudden bark that cracked through the silence like a gunshot, Ranger lunged toward the coffin. Gasps filled the room. The choir fell silent. The minister froze mid-verse. Ryan rose immediately, grabbing the leash, boots scuffing the wooden floor as Ranger pulled with surprising force. The animal's bark echoed in the rafters, raw, insistent, almost frantic. His tail stood stiff, teeth bared not in rage but in alarm. At the front row, Deputy Mayor Philip Crane turned sharply, his angular face tightening with outrage. Crane was the embodiment of a man who'd learned to smile through ambition. Tall, lean, with a flawless suit and a politician's smile that rarely reached his eyes. His blonde hair was perfectly parted, his cufflinks engraved with his initials. "Get that damn animal out of here," he snapped, voice echoing across the chapel. "Show some respect for the dead, Captain." Ryan met Crane's gaze, unflinching. "He's not reacting to the dead," he said quietly. His tone carried the calm warning of a man trained to read danger in silence. "He's alerting." "Alerting?" Crane scoffed. "This is a funeral, not a battlefield." But Dr. Maya Chen, the county medical examiner, had already stepped from the side aisle. Petite, with sharp cheekbones and straight black hair pulled into a tight bun, she carried an air of precision that came from years of dissecting both bodies and lies. Her dark eyes moved between the dog, the coffin, and Ryan. "Animals sense things we can't," she said softly. "Maybe we should let him finish." The minister hesitated, glancing toward Crane for permission. Crane's jaw clenched. "Absolutely not." Ranger barked again, louder, wilder, and in his final lunge he knocked over a vase of flowers, sending white petals scattering across the aisle. The sudden crash jolted Sarah Whitfield, Eleanor's younger sister, from her seat. Sarah was a slim, pale woman in her late 40s, with soft brown hair and eyes swollen from tears. She clutched her shawl, trembling. "Ryan, please." But Ryan had already moved forward. "Everybody step back," he ordered, voice steady, authoritative. It wasn't a request. 2 officers instinctively obeyed. He knelt beside the coffin, pressing his palm flat on its polished surface. Beneath the cool wood, something vibrated, faint but undeniable. A rhythm. "Wait," Ryan whispered. His heart hammered. He turned to Maya. "Check for sound, now." Maya frowned but leaned in, placing her stethoscope over the side panel where Ryan pointed. For 3 endless seconds, nothing. Then, faint, rhythmic, the unmistakable flutter of a human heartbeat. Maya's eyes widened. "Oh my God," she breathed. "She's alive." The room erupted in chaos. Gasps turned to screams. People surged forward, then stopped, unsure whether to believe. Crane went pale. "That's impossible," he said hoarsely. "She was examined." "By who?" Ryan cut him off. "The paramedics," Crane replied, voice cracking. "Not by me," Maya said sharply, "and I would never have signed off without an autopsy." "Open it," Ryan ordered. "No," Crane protested, but the word came too late. Maya had already slipped a gloved hand under the latch. The metal clicked, the hinges creaked, and the coffin lid lifted with a sound that would haunt every soul in that church for years to come. Eleanor Whitfield lay still, her skin pale but not waxen. Her lips trembled faintly. Maya pressed fingers to the mayor's neck again. Pulse stronger now. A tremor of breath escaped Eleanor's parted lips, faint as mist. "She's breathing," Maya confirmed. Sarah sobbed, collapsing beside the coffin. Ryan gripped the edge, his knuckles white. He had seen miracles before. Bullets missed by inches, soldiers pulled from fire, but never this. Ranger whined softly, resting his head against the coffin's side, tail thumping once in relief. "Call an ambulance," Maya said, regaining composure. "Now." As officers rushed out, Crane stumbled backward, eyes darting from Eleanor to Ryan. "You don't understand," he stammered. This can't be." "What can't?" Ryan asked, stepping closer. His tone was quiet but dangerous. "You said it yourself, Philip. She was examined. By whom? Who ordered the quick burial?" Crane's lips moved, but no sound came out. The color drained from his face, his political polish stripped away in a heartbeat. Outside, sirens wailed through the falling snow. Ryan stood still, feeling the weight of every eye on him. The room smelled now of lilies, candle smoke, and something else, the sharp metallic hint of adrenaline and revelation. Maya leaned close, whispering, "There's a puncture mark on her neck, too clean to be accidental." She looked up at Ryan. "Whatever happened to her, someone wanted her to stay dead." Ryan's gaze shifted to Crane, who was quietly edging toward the side exit, sweat glistening on his temple. The soldier in him registered everything. The twitch in Crane's hand, the quick glance toward the door, the subtle panic in a man caught before he could run. He tightened Ranger's leash and murmured, "Stay with me, boy." The dog's ears twitched, muscles tensed, eyes fixed on Crane's retreating form. And in that frozen moment, the mayor barely breathing, the sirens growing closer, and the deputy mayor backing toward the door, Ryan knew this funeral was only the beginning. Snow kept falling over Silver Falls, turning the morning into a blur of white and sirens. The ambulance carrying Mayor Eleanor Whitfield cut through the fog like a silver blade, its lights reflecting off icy streets. Captain Ryan Brooks sat in the back beside Dr. Maya Chen, one hand on Ranger's collar, the other gripping the steel bench. The dog's breathing was heavy, his amber eyes locked on Eleanor's pale face. Oxygen hissed rhythmically from the tank, syncing with the faint rise and fall of her chest. It was the sound of life trying not to slip away again. At Silver Falls General, chaos awaited. The emergency bay doors burst open as paramedics rushed Eleanor onto a gurney. Ryan followed close behind, boots squeaking on polished tile. He had seen death before, too many times, but this felt different. It wasn't a battlefield. It was a trap that had followed them home. Dr. Chen barked orders to the trauma team. Get a tox screen, full panel. I want cardiac function, neuroresponse, everything. She didn't shout from panic, but precision. Her calm under pressure reminded Ryan of field medics he'd known, people who survived war by thinking faster than fear. They wheeled Eleanor into the ICU, leaving Ryan in the hallway under the sharp light of fluorescent lamps. Ranger sat beside him, chest heaving, tail motionless. Every sound in the corridor, the shuffle of nurses, the hum of machinery, felt amplified against the pounding in his temples. The elevator chimed. Out stepped Detective Alan Pierce, a veteran of the Silver Falls Police Department. In his early 50s, Pierce was tall, solidly built, with steel-gray hair and a jaw that could have been chiseled from granite. His coat hung heavy from years of cold weather and colder truths. His left hand carried a limp, an old bullet wound from a shootout in the early 2000s that had taken both a partner and his faith in clean politics. "Ryan," Pierce greeted, voice low and gravelly, "heard the mayor's funeral turned into a resurrection." "Something like that," Ryan replied. His tone was flat, but his eyes sharp. "She was poisoned. Whoever did it wanted her buried fast." Pierce's gaze flicked toward the ICU door. "Crane's already giving statements to the press, called it a miracle." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Crane was at the funeral. He pushed for the quick burial. He's not just nervous, he's guilty." Pierce exhaled smoke from a half-finished cigarette he'd palmed on the way in. "Careful, soldier. Accusing a sitting deputy mayor without proof is how good men get destroyed in this town." Ryan didn't respond. Proof would come. He'd find it. Maya emerged minutes later, gloves still on, her expression unreadable. "She's stable for now," she said, "but the toxin is sophisticated, something designed to mimic cardiac arrest. Her vitals are fragile. If we hadn't opened that coffin, she'd be gone by now." "What kind of a poison?" Ryan asked. "Tetrodotoxin derivative, but with chemical modifications, military grade." Pierce gave a low whistle. "That's not something you pick up at a pharmacy." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "Crane has access. He's been signing off on old Army procurement contracts for the city's defense program, some of them involving decommissioned chemical supplies." Maya nodded grimly. "We'll confirm once the lab runs the sample." As she spoke, a nurse appeared. Emily Reyes, mid-20s, freckles scattered across tan skin, her brown hair tied back in a messy bun. "Doctor, someone's asking for you. He says he's from the Health Oversight Committee." Maya frowned. "At this hour?" Ryan's instincts twitched. "Let's meet him together." The man waiting near the nurse's station looked out of place in the sterile white corridor. He was immaculately dressed in a navy wool coat and dark gloves, his smile too rehearsed to be genuine. "Dr. Chen, Captain Brooks," he greeted smoothly. "I'm Mr. Leonard Voss, Regional Health Inspector. I heard there was an incident involving the mayor." His voice was silk over steel, polite but predatory. Maya crossed her arms. "That's confidential." "How did you even hear about it?" "Let's say certain officials are concerned for the city's stability," Voss said with a faint smirk. His gaze drifted to Ryan's uniform jacket, where a faded insignia of the U.S. Special Forces was barely visible, and the involvement of outside personnel. Ryan stepped closer, towering over the man. "If you're truly with health oversight, show ID." Voss smiled wider, producing a badge, but only for a second, flashing it just long enough to look official before slipping it back into his coat. "No need for hostility, Captain. I'm only here to ensure proper procedure. After all, we wouldn't want any misunderstandings about the cause of the mayor's unfortunate collapse." His choice of words hit like a slap. Collapse, not poisoning. Ryan realized then that this man wasn't investigating. He was monitoring. Pierce joined them, his presence filling the space like a storm cloud. "Funny," he said. "I've been in this department 30 years and never heard of you." Voss's smile faltered for a heartbeat before returning. "Then, perhaps you've not been looking in the right places, Detective." Ryan's gut clenched. Crane had sent him, he was sure of it, but before he could press further, Maya's pager beeped. "Excuse me," she said, and disappeared into the lab wing. Voss leaned closer to Ryan, lowering his voice. "A word of advice, soldier. Sometimes the truth isn't what keeps a city safe. Knowing when to stop asking questions does." Then he turned and walked away, leaving the faint scent of cologne and corruption in his wake. Ryan watched him go, anger simmering beneath his controlled exterior. "He's covering. Tracks," he said to Pierce. The detective nodded slowly. "And he just told us we're getting too close." Hours passed. The snow outside thickened, muting the city lights. Ryan sat by the ICU window with Ranger curled beside him. The dog's breathing had slowed. His head rested on Ryan's boot. Beyond the glass, Eleanor lay surrounded by tubes and monitors, her skin pale as marble but alive. Ryan's mind wouldn't stop racing. He thought of Crane's expression at the funeral, the rushed burial arrangements, the fake inspector. This wasn't just an attempted murder. It was the surface of something deeper, something systematic. Maya returned, fatigue lining her face. The toxin traces came back. It's mixed with caffeine and glucose, administered over time. Whoever poisoned her used her daily coffee as the delivery method. Ryan's stomach dropped. She drank it every morning at the mayor's office. Crane's assistant made it for her. "Then that's our next stop," Maya said. They left the hospital just before dawn, the air biting cold. The town square lay silent, the statue of a miner half buried in snow. Silver Falls looked peaceful again. But peace here had always been an illusion. When they reached City Hall, yellow lights glowed faintly through the frosted glass. Inside, the halls were empty except for the echo of their footsteps. On the mayor's desk sat a half-finished cup of coffee, the porcelain cracked. Ryan leaned down, sniffing the rim, bitter, metallic. "Still fresh," he murmured. Behind them, a shadow moved near the entrance. Ranger growled low. Ryan's voice hardened. "We're not alone." The shadow paused, then bolted down the corridor. Ryan drew his sidearm, sprinting after it, Maya close behind. They turned the corner just in time to see the side door slam open, wind and snow swirling in. Ryan burst through, boots crunching on ice, but the alley was empty except for fresh footprints leading toward the mayor's residence. He holstered his weapon, scanning the white horizon. "They know we're onto them," he muttered. Maya caught her breath. "Then they'll move faster." Ryan looked toward the mountains beyond the city. The snow had turned red in the dawn light. So will we. The morning after the storm carried a deceptive calm. Silver Falls woke beneath a veil of frozen mist, its streets gleaming under the pale sun like veins of glass. Yet beneath that fragile beauty, tension throbbed, in whispered conversations at diners, in the uneasy silence of City Hall, and in the mind of Captain Ryan Brooks as he stood outside the mayor's residence. His boots sank slightly into the snow, the crunch of each step echoing like memory. Ranger, still limping faintly from the chase hours before, moved beside him, nose low to the ground, breath fogging in the cold air. The German shepherd's tail was still, his focus sharp. Mayor Eleanor Whitfield remained in critical condition at the hospital. Dr. Maya Chen had refused to leave her bedside until dawn, only joining Ryan when he called saying there were fresh tracks near Eleanor's property. The woman emerged from her SUV now, her coat pulled tight, eyes narrowed against the biting wind. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair loosened from its bun, but her voice carried the same precise control. "You were right," she said. "The footprints lead from City Hall to here. Whoever came through last night knew the terrain and how to disappear." Ryan knelt, brushing aside snow to reveal tire marks. "These aren't random. The treads belong to an older government-issued SUV. Four-wheel drive, model before 2018. That's Crane's convoy car." "Crane?" Maya repeated, crouching beside him. "You think he came here himself?" Ryan's eyes followed the trail that vanished into the woods beyond the property. If he didn't, someone under his command did. Either way, they were looking for something Eleanor hid. They entered the house through the back door, which hung slightly ajar. The interior smelled faintly of smoke and lemon polish. It was a stately two-story home, polished oak floors, high ceilings, walls lined with framed military commendations and newspaper clippings of Eleanor's reforms. Everything was neat except for the study. Papers littered the desk, drawers pulled open, the safe beneath the cabinet cracked and empty. Maya exhaled softly. They found what they were looking for. "Maybe not all of it," Ryan said, scanning the room. He noticed a loose floorboard under the rug, scuffed as if pried recently. Kneeling, he lifted it and reached inside. His fingers brushed cold metal. A small flash drive, black, unmarked. He turned it in his palm. People like Eleanor don't keep just one copy. Maya smiled faintly. Good instincts, Captain. He pocketed it carefully. It's not instinct. It's pattern recognition. When someone's hunted long enough, they learn to leave bait. They heard a sound then, the faint creak of footsteps on the porch. Ranger stiffened instantly, his growl low and guttural. Ryan gestured for silence. Through the frosted window, a shadow moved. Tall, deliberate, the sartenpole. Doorknob turned. Ryan drew his pistol, silent and steady. The door opened, and Detective Alan Pierce stepped in, brushing snow from his shoulders. His gray hair was damp, his coat dusted white. Easy, soldier, he said calmly, raising one hand. If you're going to shoot, at least let me get my coffee down first. Ryan holstered the weapon but didn't relax. You have bad timing. Pierce closed the door behind him. Or good timing. Crane's gone underground. His secretary says he left town for a conference in Helena. No one's seen him since 3 a.m. That's convenient, Maya said dryly. Too convenient, Pierce agreed. I checked the city's surveillance grid. Someone accessed the network and erased the last 12 hours of footage from City Hall and Main Street. Guess who has clearance for that? Crane, Ryan said. Bingo. Pierce's expression darkened. He's running scared, but not far. He's got money stashed in shell accounts and friends who owe him favors. Ryan's gaze shifted toward the fireplace where an old photograph sat. Eleanor shaking hands with Crane during her election campaign. He remembered her speech that day. Silver Falls deserves transparency. The irony stung. He's covering a trail of people who helped him, Ryan said. Eleanor must have found something that threatened them all. Maya moved closer to the desk, noticing a corner of paper wedged behind a drawer. She tugged it free, a half-burned document stamped with the city's insignia. At the top, in faded ink, read, Project Iron Veil. Pierce frowned. Never heard of it. Neither have I, Maya said. But the signature here, it's Crane's. Ryan pocketed the document next to the flash drive. We'll find out what Iron Veil is once we decrypt this. Pierce grunted. I know a guy who can help with that. Name's Caleb Ward, ex-NSA tech analyst, lives out near the old radio tower. Paranoid as hell, but brilliant. Lost his job after leaking classified data on police surveillance. Trust issues, with good reason. Then he's our man, Ryan said. They drove north along the frozen highway, snow flurries swirling in the beam of the headlights. The radio tower loomed like a skeleton against the gray sky. Pierce parked the car, and they climbed the narrow hill, Ranger leading the way, his paws sinking into deep snow. A shack stood at the summit, windows boarded, smoke curling from a rusted chimney. Caleb Ward opened the door before they knocked, a wiry man in his late 40s with unkempt brown hair, scruffy beard, and thick glasses that magnified restless eyes. He wore a faded army hoodie and jeans torn at the knees. Detective, he greeted, voice sharp. You bring trouble or coffee? Both, Pierce said, handing him a thermos. We need your expertise. Caleb's eyes flicked to Ryan. You military? Was, Ryan said simply. That explains the posture. Caleb motioned them in. All right, let's see what ghost you've got in that drive. Inside, the cabin looked like a cross between a hacker's lair and a bunker. Monitors lined the walls, wires tangled like ivy, and old equipment hummed faintly. Caleb slid the flash drive into a reader, fingers flying across the keyboard. After a few minutes, encrypted files appeared. Names, bank transactions, and one heavily coded folder labeled Iron Veil, Phase 2. He whistled low. Whatever this is, it's not city-level corruption. It's federal grade. Offshore transfers to companies tied to a defense contractor in Virginia. Someone's laundering military funds through Silver Falls. Through Crane, Ryan said. And others, Caleb corrected. See here. Signatures from Judge Randall Hodge and Councilman Mason Hale. Iron Veil isn't just a project. It's a cover for weapons trafficking. Maya's breath caught. Eleanor was investigating this before she was poisoned, Caleb nodded grimly. Looks like she'd gathered enough to bring them down. Pierce rubbed his chin. And that's why Crane wanted her dead before she talked. Ryan leaned forward, studying the coded timeline on the monitor. What's Phase 2? Caleb hesitated. I can't fully decrypt it yet, but it references asset relocation and containment measures. Sounds like they're preparing to eliminate evidence and people. Outside, Ranger began barking, sharp and frantic. Caleb looked up. "That's your dog, right? Because I don't keep pets." Ryan grabbed his gun, moving to the window. A black SUV was parked halfway down the hill, its engine idling, headlights off. Figures moved behind the glass, 2, maybe 3. "They found us," Pierce muttered. Bullets shattered the window before he finished the sentence. Glass sprayed across the room. Caleb dove behind a desk, shouting, "They jammed my signal! Can't call out!" Ryan returned fire through the broken frame, muzzle flashes lighting the cabin like lightning. Ranger barked beside him, teeth bared, adrenaline surging. Snow kicked up from impacts outside. Maya crouched low, heart hammering. "Who are they?" "Crane's cleanup crew," Ryan said grimly. "They're burning every loose end." Pierce fired 2 more shots, then ducked as a round splintered the doorframe inches from his head. "We're pinned." Caleb crawled to a metal panel on the floor and yanked it open, revealing a narrow crawl space. "Old service tunnel from the tower days. Leads down to the creek." "Go," Ryan ordered. "I'll cover." But Ranger refused to move, standing firm between Ryan and the shattered window. Ryan's throat tightened. He'd seen that stance before, years ago in Afghanistan, when the dog saved his life and nearly lost its own. "Not this time, boy," he whispered. Pierce grabbed Ryan's shoulder. "Move, soldier. You can't save the dead twice." Ryan hesitated, one heartbeat too long, then nodded. Together they dropped into the tunnel, darkness swallowing them whole as gunfire thundered above. The cold underground air hit like ice as they crawled through the narrow passage. Behind them, the cabin exploded in a bloom of orange light. The shockwave trembled through the tunnel walls. When they emerged near the frozen creek, the world was silent again, except for Ranger's panting and the distant echo of the blast. Smoke curled into the dawn sky. Caleb wiped soot from his face. "They just erased my house," he said flatly. Ryan looked back at the rising smoke, jaw clenched. "Then they just told us exactly how close we are." Snow turned to rain by the time they reached the edge of Silver Falls again. The storm had changed. Warmer now, but heavy, the kind that carried the smell of melted asphalt and smoke. From the ridge above town, Captain Ryan Brooks could still see the faint black plume curling up from what remained of Caleb Ward's cabin. It had taken them 2 hours to crawl through frozen mud and reach an access road. Now, as they sat in Pierce's weathered SUV, headlights slicing through the wet fog, the world felt smaller, hunted. Detective Alan Pierce drove in silence, one hand tight on the wheel, the other rubbing the old bullet scar on his shoulder like a habit born of pain. "They'll assume we're dead," he said finally, eyes fixed on the road. "Which buys us time. Not much, but enough." Dr. Maya Chen, sitting in the back beside Ranger, wiped blood from a small cut on her cheek. Her lab coat was long gone, replaced by a rain jacket too big for her frame. The exhaustion etched on her face couldn't hide the fire in her eyes. "If Crane sent those men, he's desperate. He knows we have the Iron Veil files." Ryan turned, his voice low but steady. "We need to get Eleanor out of that hospital. If Crane's cleaning house, she's next." The words hung heavy between them. Outside, lightning cracked over the distant mountains, throwing ghostly light over the highway. Pierce's jaw tightened. "You're suggesting we move the mayor while she's on life support?" Ryan's gaze didn't waver. "If we don't, we'll be moving her body next." The hospital came into view. Silver Falls Medical Center, its windows glowing dimly through the fog. The parking lot was mostly empty except for 2 black sedans near the emergency entrance. Government plates. Pierce cursed under his breath. "Looks like the vultures got here first." Ryan scanned the perimeter. "You 2 go through the back. I'll draw them to the front. Once you get Eleanor, bring her to the loading dock behind the morgue. It opens onto the service road. I'll meet you there." Maya frowned. "That's suicide." He gave a half smile. "I've had worse plans." Before she could protest, Ryan slipped into the rain, his figure merging with the mist. Ranger followed without hesitation, fur darkened by the downpour, eyes fixed on his handler. Inside the hospital, the air was unnaturally still. The night shift had thinned. Most of the nurses sent home early because of the weather. The faint hum of monitors and the drip of IVs echoed down the sterile hallways. When Ryan entered through the front doors, he saw two men in paramedic uniforms standing by the reception desk. But their posture was wrong. Too rigid, too alert. One had a bulge under his jacket that didn't belong to medical equipment. Ryan approached slowly, feigning calm. "Evening," he said. "Heard the mayor's condition changed." The taller man, Agent Knox, turned. He had a square face, buzz-cut hair, and a jaw that looked carved from concrete. His uniform was spotless, his boots too polished for a paramedic. "Restricted area," he said flatly. "Staff only." Ryan smiled faintly. "Good thing I'm staffed tonight." Then he slammed his elbow into the man's throat before the sentence finished. The second agent went for his gun, but Ranger was faster. The German shepherd lunged, clamping his jaws around the man's wrist. The weapon clattered to the floor. Ryan finished the fight quickly, efficient, controlled, almost silent. He dragged both men behind the reception counter, checked their IDs, fake credentials, black insignia, federal contractors, not law enforcement. Meanwhile, in the ICU, Maya Chen and Detective Pierce moved with surgical precision. Maya swiped her hospital keycard, unlocking Eleanor's room. The mayor lay motionless under soft white light, her face pale against the pillow, breathing steady but shallow. Machines beeped rhythmically, wires weaving like fragile lifelines. Pierce closed the blinds and whispered, "We'll need to disconnect her from half this setup to move her." Maya's hands shook as she adjusted the IV lines. "If we do it wrong, she won't survive the trip." "Then don't do it wrong," Pierce replied gently, watching the hallway. Downstairs, the elevator pinged. Ryan froze mid-step. He pressed against the wall as the doors opened. Two more men stepped out, one carrying a medical crate, the other holding a clipboard. But their eyes were scanning, not reading. He recognized that look. Hunters. He moved fast. A flash of motion, a suppressed shot, a body falling before a sound could escape. Ranger growled low, covering the corridor. They advanced like ghosts, every shadow a potential trap. When Ryan reached the ICU floor, he found Maya and Pierce struggling to detach Eleanor's ventilator from its wall mount. The mayor's body twitched faintly, not from pain, but from life stirring. "She's waking," Maya whispered. "Her brain's reacting again." Eleanor's eyelids fluttered. A faint sound escaped her lips, a word, maybe a name. Ryan leaned closer. "What did she say?" Maya listened carefully. She said, "Iron Veil, not done." Before Ryan could answer, an alarm blared. The security system triggered. The emergency lights turned red, flooding the hallway with crimson flashes. "Move!" Pierce shouted. They wheeled the gurney toward the service elevator, Ranger running ahead, barking. The sound of boots thundered from below. The power flickered, plunging the hallway into semi-darkness. Ryan hit the elevator button. Nothing. Power cut. "They're locking us in." Maya turned toward the stairwell. "Then we go down the hard way." They descended, level after level, pushing the gurney carefully. Eleanor's heartbeat spiked, the portable monitor screaming warnings. Maya adjusted the oxygen valve with trembling fingers. "Just a little more," she whispered. At the ground floor, Pierce kicked open the service door. Rain and smoke hit them like a wave. The morgue loading dock stood 50 feet away, and between them, 3 black SUVs blocking the exit. A voice came through a megaphone. "Captain Brooks, you have something that doesn't belong to you." Ryan recognized it instantly. Leonard Voss, the health inspector. His coat gleamed wet under the security lights as he stepped forward, flanked by armed men. "Walk away now," Voss called. "We'll take it from here." Ryan's grip tightened on his pistol. "You'll take her over my dead body." Voss smiled thinly. "That can be arranged." Then gunfire erupted. Bullets sparked off the concrete. Glass shattered overhead. Ranger barked wildly, lunging forward as Ryan returned fire. Maya and Pierce ducked behind the gurney, shielding Eleanor's fragile body with their own. The firefight was brief but brutal. Ryan moved like instinct. Cover, fire, advance. Every muscle remembering a war he thought he'd left behind. Pierce hit one of the attackers in the leg, sending him sprawling. Voss ducked behind an SUV, shouting orders, but his men were dropping fast. Then a single shot cracked the air, louder than the rest. Ryan felt the impact before he heard it. His shoulder burned, spinning him sideways. He fell to one knee, teeth clenched, blood mixing with rain. Ranger snarled and leapt at the shooter, dragging him down. "Ryan!" Maya screamed. He waved her off, pushing to his feet. "Get her out!" Pierce started the SUV nearest to them, one of the attackers' vehicles. "It's running! Move!" Maya and Ryan lifted Eleanor onto the back seat, hooking up the portable oxygen. Ranger jumped in last, wet fur dripping. Pierce slammed the gas, tires screeching as bullets ricocheted off the frame. They tore through the service road, headlights slicing the rain. Behind them, Voss stood in the storm, watching the taillights vanish into the darkness. His face was calm, too calm. He raised a radio to his mouth. "Asset Alpha escaped," he said. "Proceed with Phase 2. Miles away in the back seat, Eleanor stirred again. Her lips moved faintly. Ryan leaned close, his arm bleeding through his torn sleeve. This time her words were clear. "They're coming. For all of us." Ryan's eyes met Maya's in the rearview mirror. Neither spoke. The road ahead vanished into the rain, but the war had only just begun. Dawn crept reluctantly over Silver Falls, washing the drenched town in muted gold and pale ash. The storm had passed, leaving behind a silence so profound it almost seemed afraid to break. In that silence, a battered SUV rolled down a mountain road slick with melted snow, its tires hissing against the wet pavement. Inside, Captain Ryan Brooks fought to stay awake, one hand gripping the steering wheel, the other pressed against the bandage on his shoulder. The wound burned, but he had no time to feel it. Behind him, Dr. Maya Chen kept vigil over Mayor Eleanor Whitfield, her hands steady as she checked the oxygen feed. Ranger, soaked and exhausted, rested his head on Ryan's armrest, ears twitching at every sound outside. The mountains around them were awakening. Birds cutting through the cold air, the sun's weak rays breaking through shredded clouds. But to Ryan, it didn't feel like morning. It felt like the aftermath of a long, unseen war. They drove west for hours, deep into the old mining country, a place long forgotten by maps and bureaucracy. The land was scarred with frozen gullies and rusted equipment, the ghosts of industry left to rot under pine and snow. At last, they reached an abandoned ranger station perched on a ridge above Marrow Creek. Pierce had mentioned it before being separated during the escape, an old federal safe house from the Cold War, still wired for off-grid power. Ryan stopped the car, breathing hard. "We'll hold here," he said quietly. Maya climbed out, her breath forming clouds in the cold air. The sunrise painted her face in soft amber tones, revealing dark smudges beneath her eyes, but also a quiet defiance. "How long before they find us?" Ryan looked at the horizon. "Depends on how desperate they are." Inside, the station smelled of cedar and dust. The windows were clouded, the furniture draped in white sheets. Ryan cleared a space near the fireplace and helped Maya move Eleanor onto a cot. The mayor's breathing was shallow but steady, her skin flushed faintly with returning color. Hours passed. The storm's memory faded. The world outside turned bright and still. Maya cleaned Ryan's wound with trembling hands, her voice low. "You shouldn't be moving." "I've had worse," he said, grimacing as she stitched. "Do you ever stop pretending you're invincible?" Ryan met her gaze, eyes that carried both exhaustion and fire. "Not when other people's lives depend on it." For the first time in days, she smiled faintly. "That's the problem with soldiers," she murmured. "You never know when the war's over." Ranger, lying by the door, lifted his head suddenly. Ears perked, muscles tense. Ryan froze. Then came the sound. A vehicle in the distance, one engine, approaching slow. He drew his gun, moving to the window. A dark pickup emerged from the trees, crunching over the gravel road. The driver stepped out. Tall, coat torn, gray hair, plastered to his forehead. Detective Alan Pierce. Ryan exhaled, lowering his weapon. "You're late." Pierce gave a crooked grin. "Had to make sure no one followed me." "You're welcome." He entered, shedding his coat. "City's crawling with federal agents. Voss declared a containment order. They're claiming the mayor's body was stolen for evidence tampering." "Of course they are," Maya said bitterly. Pierce nodded toward Eleanor. "How is she?" "Alive," Maya replied. "Barely, but she's fighting." As if on cue, Eleanor stirred, her lips parted, a whisper slipping through. "Ryan." He knelt beside her, voice soft. "I'm here, ma'am." Her eyes fluttered open, pupils adjusting to the light. "Where?" "Safe," he said. "For now." She looked around the cabin, recognition flickering. Marrow Creek, she murmured. My father built this place when I was a girl. He said, one day it might save me. Maya placed a gentle hand on her arm. You need rest. But Eleanor shook her head weakly. No, you need truth. She reached toward her coat, still folded at the bedside. Inside, pocket. Ryan retrieved a sealed envelope. Inside was a photo. Eleanor standing with Crane, Voss, and several military officials in front of a facility marked Iron Veil Logistics Division, 2015. On the back, a single line written in Eleanor's handwriting. The war never ended. It just changed uniforms. Pierce let out a low whistle. So she knew. She always knew, Maya said quietly. That's why they had to silence her. Eleanor's voice trembled but gained strength. They're using the Iron Veil network to move weapons and data through small towns, places too quiet for anyone to notice. Silver Falls was their pilot. They turned my city into a laundromat for blood money. Ryan clenched his fists. We exposed them. Eleanor shook her head. Not yet. You can't fight shadows with noise. You fight them with light, when they least expect it. The words hung in the air like scripture. As the day wore on, they fortified the cabin. Pierce set traps along the perimeter, Maya cataloged the data from the flash drive, and Ryan stood watch with Ranger, his senses sharpened by fatigue. The forest below whispered with thawing snow. When dusk fell, Eleanor called Ryan over again. Her voice was weak, but her eyes burned with the same authority that had carried her through a lifetime of battles. You once told me you left the army because you stopped believing in orders, she said. Maybe it's time to believe in something else. Ryan looked at her. What's that? In redemption, she whispered. He nodded slowly, unsure if she meant his or the town's. That night, the world outside went silent again. Too silent. Ranger growled softly, ears twitching toward the north ridge. Ryan slipped on his coat, motioning to Pierce. Movement, he said. They crept outside, moonlight spilling silver over the snow. Shadows moved among the trees. 3 figures, disciplined, armed. Pierce's whisper was harsh. They found us! Gunfire cracked the stillness. Muzzle flashes lit the trees. Ryan ducked behind a fallen log, returning fire. Ranger barked furiously, darting ahead, driving the attackers back toward the woods. Inside, Maya shielded Eleanor as bullets shattered a window. Stay down! One assailant broke through the door. Maya swung the butt of her pistol, striking him across the jaw. The man fell, mask slipping to reveal Agent Knox, bloodied but alive. The same operative from the hospital. Eleanor's breath caught. He's one of Voss's men. Knox's lips curved into a faint smile, teeth red. You can't stop Phase 2, he rasped. It's already in motion. Ryan entered, gun trained. Then you'll watch it die with you. Knox lunged, but Ranger was faster. The dog slammed into him, teeth sinking deep into his forearm. A scream cut through the cabin. Ryan fired once. Silence returned. Maya knelt by Ranger, running her hands over his fur. He's bleeding, she said softly. Ryan's chest tightened. The sight of blood on Ranger's paw clawed at something deep in him. He's okay, he whispered. He's always okay. Pierce kicked the door shut, locking it. We can't stay here. There'll be more. Eleanor nodded, pain tightening her features. Then you go. Take the files. The people need to know. Ryan shook his head. I'm not leaving you. Her hand found his, surprisingly firm. You already saved me. Now, save them. Outside, dawn began to rise again. The true dawn this time, streaks of amber burning through the clouds. It cast long rays through the cabin's broken windows, washing over Ranger's wounded fur, Maya's trembling hands, and Ryan's blood-streaked face. Pierce loaded the data drives into a waterproof satchel. I know a contact in Washington, he said. An honest one, maybe the last. Ryan turned to Eleanor, his voice thick. We'll end this, I swear it. She smiled faintly, eyes glistening in the sunlight. I know you will, Captain. That's why I chose you. The light grew stronger, flooding the room with warmth. For the first time in days, Ryan felt it. Not victory, not relief, but something deeper. The fragile, stubborn pulse of hope. As they prepared to leave, Ranger limped to the doorway, turning his head as if listening to something unseen. the forest, the wind, or maybe just the promise of another fight waiting beyond the hills. Ryan followed his gaze toward the valley below, where the first rays of sun touched the city of Silver Falls. Smoke still lingered over its rooftops, but in that light, it looked almost beautiful, like a place worth saving. He whispered under his breath, "We'll come back for you." And with that vow, the soldier, the doctor, the detective, and the wounded mayor began their descent into the dawn, toward redemption, toward war, and toward the truth that would either save them or destroy everything left worth saving. Sometimes, God doesn't send thunder to save us. He sends a whisper, a loyal friend, or a faithful dog to remind us that miracles still happen quietly. In the darkest moments, when it feels like everything has been lost, light often returns through the smallest act of courage, through loyalty, through the simple decision not to give up. The story of Ryan, Ranger, and Mayor Eleanor isn't just about survival. It's about faith. About how redemption can begin with one person choosing to do what's right, even when the world looks hopeless. In our own lives, we may not face bullets or conspiracies, but we all fight invisible battles: pain, loss, fear, and doubt. And sometimes, God's grace comes not as rescue, but as strength to keep walking, to keep believing. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs a reminder that miracles still exist in ordinary courage. Leave a comment with your thoughts and where you're watching from. Your story might inspire another soul tonight. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of hope, loyalty, and second chances. May God bless you and your loved ones, and may His light guide you, even through the darkest valleys, toward your own dawn of redemption.